thing that I must point out is that we defeated communism without having to sacrifice great life. It crumbled. After the victory against Germany and Japan, we spent a lot of money, a lot of effort on teaching them democracy, on helping them to build up their industries. Because Winston said, after victory, magnanimity. So in Europe, it was a Marshall Plan. In the Far East, you helped Japan to build up a democracy and build up a totally different concept of industry and commerce. After communism crumbled, it hadn't cost us a life, it hadn't cost us any loss of resources. And I feel very strongly, indeed, that we should help them the more because we didn't have to make sacrifices ourselves. And I'm very pleased indeed with the new package, which is only a start, which will help them to set up the structures of liberty. They haven't even got a sound bank, they didn't know how to manage their money supply, there are no independent courts. Why should there be? It was the diktat of the Communist Party. There are no independent people, professional administrators. Why should there be? It was always members of the Communist Party, and there were 18 million bureaucrats, each with their little regulation, and some of those regulations are still there. After the coup, the same thing happened to that Soviet empire as it happened to previous ones. They wanted to revert to their own national identity. It will be better that way. It leaves us problems with the nuclear weapons, and that is a problem of the coming century, because far many more peoples will have access to them, and far more of the technology is known. But the great asset, the great advance is that if we make the system work in the Soviet Union, or in the countries of the Soviet Union, a system based on our ideals, liberty under a rule of law, creation of wealth by an enterprise society, private property, the importance of the family, all of these things, and a full democracy under which you've got the limitation of government powers. If we do that, we've made the greatest development of democracy for a very long time. So it's in our interest to help them. In the countries of Eastern Europe, they mercifully are free now and going ahead faster with building a free enterprise society because they have not been communist so long. They still too are needing help. Now, can I then just go on to how Europe itself is trying to give help and its shortcomings? People ask me about 1992 and 1993 in Europe. That is not a single currency or a single monetary policy. That is a single market, which is what we've been working for a very long time, so that all the goods have the same safety requirements and all the same standards. We have one great problem in Europe. It is protectionist in agriculture. That is stopping the negotiations with you and Japan in the GATT. And it is also meaning that the countries of Eastern Europe cannot pull up their own standards by exporting their agriculture and their textiles and some of their steel products to the Europe next door, because I'm afraid we have high tariff borders in the single market, and it is those which many of us wish to get down. Because it's no good talking either to the countries of Eastern Europe or to third world countries and say, look, we will give you aid, but we will deny you the dignity of earning your own living through trade. And that is a problem which must be dealt with very much during the coming years. May I have a brief word, Mr. President, about Japan? I know some of you are very worried about the great success of Japan in certain manufacturing industries. Japan is very successful in cars, in electronics and cameras, and in the automated machine tools. You needn't worry and shouldn't criticize a country whose industries produce products which are well designed and of such good value that you choose to buy them. What what you should do is make certain that your products are better designed, better produced, better value, so that people choose to buy them. There is one advantage that the Japanese do have when they come to set up in our countries. It's a very considerable advantage. I know because I did some of the negotiations of the Japanese big companies coming to Britain. They insist when they come to build a car factory, take an example, that they will come provided they can have one union only. Now, most of yours and ours have, in our case, we had 6 to 12, and most of our car companies are some of yours as well, 6 to 12 unions, each with restrictive practices. And the Japanese said, we will come, we will set up on a greenfield site, we will take on people, and we have one union only. And I said, and I expect it happened here, if that is a condition of your coming, you say, it's a factory with one union or no factory, no jobs. Now, they've come with the one union, but what happened, and it's happened in my country as well as yours, when the established car factories and car producers, the Fords and the General Motors, and in our case the British Leyland, said, right, or the Ford said, right, we're setting up a new factory in Britain, we want one union. The union said no, because that'll affect your other factories in Britain. And so we didn't get that Ford factory. Now, the lesson is for the unions to realize that if they want more jobs, they too must take part in seeing that the whole business for which they work can get increased efficiency and therefore keep their costs down. But that, I think, is one thing which is one of the things I had to do was to revise the whole of trade union law, because it had become grossly unfair and inequitable, because in fact it was unfair as between employer and employee, it was unfair as between the member of a trade union and the trade union official. And the trade union members in a closed shop, which we stopped, had to come out on strike if they were called out on strike, even though many of them would have preferred to go to work. So we changed our laws and we have very, very few strikes. But that is one of the reasons why some of the Japanese new factories have an advantage over the indigenous ones. Otherwise, may I say to you, as the most enterprising country in the world, you need not worry. You're not brilliant just in 4 sets of industries. You are brilliant in oil, in gas, in pharmaceuticals, in chemicals, in chemical fertilizers, in all of the great industries, whether it's textiles, whether it's furniture, whether it's all the metal industries. You're brilliant right across the whole, whether it's in food, gathering food or food production, frozen food, right across the whole swathe of industry. That is the great United States, and you have nothing to fear from a country which is very good in just 3 or 4 industries. Now, have you got the message? You're good and you should be confident. You built up enterprise, and you did it by valuing the individuals and by giving them liberty, because wealth creation too is a moral factor in that it uses the talents and abilities, God-given talents and abilities of people to build things up themselves. The final thing I wish to say, because I've gone on far too long, and women don't normally speak longer than men, at least that's what I found in the House of Commons. But in spite of everything, in spite of the big organizations, and there are many, many of them, in spite of an age of technology, the most important thing in life is not merely the technology, it is the individual. Wars are won not by machines, important as they are, important as great technology is. Wars are won by individual men and women with the honor, with the determination, under very good leadership. It is just the same in industry. It is just the same in negotiations. It is not the whole system that wins anything. It's not liberty as a system. It is individuals within that system which take advantage of all of their talents, who are satisfied with nothing less than excellence, and who, in fact, get the very best out of themselves, teach the very best, and give their families the very best. It was perhaps put at its best by Tennyson, and it was not a poem that I knew, but I came across it again the other day. And he's speaking of the miracle of creation. And he said this: him, speaking of the great creator, who wrought not matter, nor the finite infinite, but this main miracle, that thou art thou, and power on thine own act, and on the world. No speaker could have said it more economically. That is what moves the world, that thou art thou, power on thine own act, and therefore on the world. I wish you well in all your great endeavors in the rest of this century and the next.
Take questions.
Yes.
Okay.